Emma Watson is in the news because she did this interview with Jay Shetty, and I don't think she's really done an interview like this in quite some time. And she has been retired from acting for 8 years. And she basically just opened up about everything.
I really don't believe that by having had that experience and holding the love and support and views that I have mean that I can't and don't treasure Joe and the person that I had personal experiences with. I will never believe that one negates the other, and that my experience of that person I don't get to keep and cherish. To come back to our earlier thing, like, I just don't think these things are either or. I think it's my deepest wish that I hope people who don't agree with my opinion will love me, and I hope I can keep loving people who I don't necessarily share the same opinion with. And I think that's a very, very important way for me that I need to be able to move through life. I just really, I guess to circle back around, I really do believe in having conversations, and that those are really important, and that, I don't know, I guess where I've landed is it's not so much what we say or what we believe, but very often how we say it that's really important. And that's really frustrating and not what you want to hear when you're really angry and upset with someone. But I don't know. I just see this world right now where we seem to be giving permission for this kind of like throwing out of people, or that people are disposable. And I just think I will always think that's wrong. I just believe that no one's disposable. And everyone, as far as possible, whatever the conversation is, should and can be treated with, at the very least, dignity and respect.
What she's saying is essentially, I still love Joe. She calls her Joe. I have memories of her that I still treasure, what she meant to me, how important she was in my life, especially when I was very young. Like, that is still true. But also it's true, like, she does this duality thing. Like, also it's true that I believe what I believe, which she doesn't say explicitly here, but she has said before, and that like trans people deserve rights. And that she's kind of looking at this as we have a difference of opinion. We have a difference of opinion, but I can still love this person even though she doesn't love me anymore, which I think Emma is saying is that sucks. And on the one hand, like, look, this is something that I know this can be a complicated thing. Like, there are people in here who are trans, who are queer, they're at odds with their families because of who they are. And it is this like trying to, some people they've cut off family members. Some it's we still have a relationship. Even though we obviously we are not in agreement over something like human rights. But I think the problem here is that, okay, I think the problem here is that Emma is portraying JK Rowling's transphobia, her fascism as a difference of opinion. This is like very much the moderate liberal, like treating fascism as an opinion rather than as a, you know, how you view human beings, how you consider, you know, your consideration for human life. And so I think that is why people have raised an eyebrow at this, why they've been like, Emma girl, what's going on? Because she can express, look, she had a very close relationship with JK Rowling, okay? To her, maybe JK Rowling was family, and the way that people here, like with their families, have had to work through these very difficult things of like, you know, maybe you have a parent who's transphobic, but you still have a relationship with them, and it's very complicated. But also family, you know, family complicates things. But I think it's needing to not keep treating this as a difference of opinions. But I get that that's probably difficult. She was already struggling to express. And I think it needs to be made clear that fascism is not a difference of opinions, and we have to stop normalizing it as such. And it's not just an opinion, because JK Rowling is actively committing harm against trans lives. She is responsible for legislation that is stripping rights away from trans people. So it's not just her being like, I don't like trans people. It's her actively causing harm. And she has a ton of wealth and a lot of influence. So she is actively harming people. I have to say, like, transphobia is transphobia, but JK Rowling is in a different position than probably most of your family members who are, if they're transphobic, because they don't have the billions of dollars and the power that JK Rowling has, that she is actively using to strip liberties away from trans people and gloating about it publicly. The other thing that I would say is JK Rowling has made it very clear that she does not fuck with them. And in fact, in response to this, she posted on Twitter this shit. So this, I don't know who the fuck this woman is. Some comedian, in quotes. Emma Watson finally breaks her silence and shares her truth about the rift with JK Rowling. Spoiler alert, you may need some vinaigrette to consume this. JK reposted this. I'm already missing Intel Ladies Angela Rayner, but I'm here for all the spoofs. Like, she is laughing in Emma Watson's face. So another difference of the Emma Watson JK Rowling relationship and the comments she said versus like maybe your own with your own family member is that these are public figures and these are comments that are being made publicly. So the way that this is reflecting then on Emma to say on a public podcast what she said, and then JK Rowling responding publicly this way, like it also I think makes a difference there. You know, it's like Emma Watson is still this. Here's the thing. The reason that you can't give an inch to people like JK Rowling is because they don't give a fuck. JK Rowling is not going to stop being a hateful bigot, and she is not going to stop publicly trashing the stars of her franchise because they are not transphobic. And so, as I said, I get that if you had this relationship with JK that probably felt like a familial relationship, they were kids, she was a big part of their lives, they spent a lot of times together, maybe they called her Aunt Joe, I don't fucking know, but like some familial relationship that you have struggled with because of the ghoulish things that she has been saying and doing, and because like she has, you know how I think about it? Look, I have an aunt that I have cut off. For reasons including that she is a transphobe and just, been espousing hateful beliefs and just horrible things that she's been doing. I think about if we were both famous and then I on a podcast was giving her grace and then she just turning back around and throwing it in my face and, mocking me. At some point, there's no more grace. And I have to imagine that they have reached out to her privately, that they've like maybe especially Emma Watson, maybe Daniel Radcliffe was like, I don't give a fuck, you crazy ass bitch. But maybe Emma, because it sounds as if she loves her still and is like, I essentially like sounds that she wishes she could still have a relationship with her, even though they disagree. I have to imagine that she's tried to reach out privately, probably has only been met with like either silence or just pure and, JK Rowling antagonism. So like this then being done publicly and the response to it being this, like, I think if this were me and my aunt, I would be like, yeah, you don't get any more grace. No, I'm no longer extending that to you because this isn't even just privately now how we're handling things. Like this is all out publicly. She also tweeted this because the Critic Mag wrote, Emma's passing admission that she still feels love for the woman who created her most famous role was enough to get her attacked by the hashtag Be Kind lot. So what's the point in complying? The gender fanatics are never satisfied. And JK tweeted, it's quite extraordinary how many people think a crocodile will be so grateful you fed it red meat for years that it'll let you stroll away unharmed when you decide you want to break. This is a horrible person, not just for what she said, but the fact that like she so clearly does not extend any of that grace that Emma Watson has extended her right back. And this is why you cannot give some like with bigots like this, and it's, you know what it is too? It's the like, okay. It's the same thing when liberals in office are like, we need to reach across the aisle. We need to reach across the aisle and work with our colleagues here, even though they're MAGA, like blah, 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 where it's like, they don't give a fuck about you. They don't give a fuck about us. They're not hiding that. And they're laughing in your faces. They are laughing at your civility, at your like emphasis on how much we need to be civil and work together when they're like, fuck you. Like, yeah, you keep doing that. You keep wasting your time on that. Meanwhile, I will be over here causing even more harm and destruction. And you'll be over there like hand wringing and being like, oh, we just need to get along. We're talking specifically about people who have power and influence, like JK Rowling or like, MAGA politicians who do not give a fuck about you. They do not care and they are actively causing harm. So the time for grace, the time for like reaching across the aisle with these people in power, that's not what's happening. Okay. And nor should that be happening. You need to reach across the aisle, but the other side of the aisle is a wood chipper type shit. Yes. And it's always one-sided. Yeah, and so JK is over here like liking and tweeting and just absolutely deriding Emma Watson for saying that she still loves her. That's how fucking horrible this woman is. I think what's tough too is like Emma Watson is cisgender. So yes, she is an ally for trans people, but she herself does not have to bear the brunt of JK Rowling's attacks. Even though, yes, transphobia hurts all people, like first and foremost, it's hurting trans people. So I think also, like, when you're speaking publicly, you have to be taking that into consideration. So for trans people, it's not a difference of opinions. This is fascism that is actively trying to kill them, that is trying to eradicate them from society, to strip their liberties from them, to make sure that they don't exist. So it's not, I just think, like, if you are a public figure and you're speaking and you're speaking publicly like this, I get that this is tricky and that there's, you know, a relationship here that I am not a part of, that I don't know their whole history, whatever. But still, I think Emma should have, I think she needed to make more clarifications, and I think she needed to not express this in the way that she did. And I think the other reason too why I'm kind of shaking my head at this is because at another point in the podcast, she kind of did this same two things can be true when she's talking about Palestine here.
Like, they can talk about, people don't feel like they can talk about what's happening safely. This duality created where we don't seem able to care about the victims of terrorism and care about the genocide that's happening in Palestine at the same time. And both things have to be allowed to be true. You have to be allowed to care about 50,000 civilians dying, 17,000 of which are children.
Which also, that number is so far from the actual toll.
And care deeply about the victims of this awful terrorist attack. People don't feel like they can talk about what's happening.
Okay, so this part especially is very much giving, like, white liberal. It's very much both, you know, it kind of both sides. It's kind of like a, well, sure, we should care about the genocide, but equally we need to, like, what that does then is it still equates this, and it still erases the history before 10/7. And that's part of the problem here with people who have, with liberals who have gotten on board with being pro-Palestine to the extent that they are anti-genocide, is they still are ignoring the very important context and history that led up to October 7th. And my concern is that liberals don't understand that pro-Palestine does not just mean anti-genocide. It means free Palestine as well. Freeing Palestine, not just from the genocide that they are enduring, the illegal violent settler actions in the West Bank, but also to free them from Israel entirely. To free them from Israel, which is the reason 10/7 happened. And that is a very important part of the story here. She very much so is like giving off privileged liberal, where this doesn't actually have this actually doesn't have the seriousness that it should. Like, she's not treating it with that. And I've always liked Emma Watson, and this doesn't, like, I don't hate her. This is not being like, oh yeah, well now I fucking hate Emma Watson. I mean, she doesn't even do anything anymore. It's not like she's acting. She really doesn't make appearances, which is why this is kind of a rarity. But I do think the criticism to the words that she used here is understandable. And I think that anyone who's continuing to contribute to this idea that fascism is both sides or that fascism is a difference of opinions, this is a bad contribution. This is something that we should not continue to be contributing towards. So at this point, it's like, girl, I think you need to realize that this person is not somebody who you should have a relationship with. Sorry. This is not someone that you should keep giving grace to. I think if you're still feeling conflicted over it, it's better to just not say anything at this point.